Shalom. In the last shiur, we showed how Sadia Gaon approaches the question, what is true? He answers that truths, including Torah truths, are provided by four sources: sense perception, direct reason, inferential reason, and reliable tradition. He asserts that although revelation imparted many truths that could have been achieved through the path of reason, the two paths never contradict each other. God has commanded us to inquire patiently until the truth of tradition was brought out by speculation. This brings us to our second great thinker, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, 1075 to 1141, and his masterwork of Jewish thought, which he calls the Book of Argument and Proof in Defense of the Despised Faith, but which is popularly called the Kuzari. The book, which Yehuda Halevi worked on for 20 years, is based on a historic event. Around the year 740, in the kingdom of the Khazars, it's an empire near the Caspian and Black Seas, the king converted to Judaism, followed by his nobles and the rest of the kingdom. Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, living 400 years later, imagines a dialogue between the king and a rabbi. The inquisitive king wants to know which path of life will be most pleasing to God. Before summoning the rabbi, however, the king first interrogates a philosopher, a Christian, and a Muslim, and finds fault with all of their belief systems. When he finally does invite a Jew, he declares that it had never occurred to him to consider the path of Judaism, since the persecution which the Jewish people suffer proves they have been rejected by God. Judaism must be, as the full title of the Kuzari says, the despised faith. When the king asks for the basis of the Jewish faith, the rabbi responds not with proofs based on reason, but rather with those based on collective experience. The children of Israel were slaves in Egypt. They witnessed the plagues visited on Pharaoh and the Egyptians. They left Egypt and witnessed the drowning of the Egyptians at the sea. They heard God communicate the Torah to them at Sinai, and they benefited from God's miraculous care for the 40 years they lived in the wilderness. It was through all these events that God's existence and his will were revealed to them. At first, the king is surprised. The other representatives had begun with principles of faith, not history. The rabbi responds, if proofs based on reason were unassailable, all philosophers would agree, which they clearly do not. The rabbi goes on to demonstrate the truth of Judaism through the experience of divine revelation. Revelation, he says, is far more persuasive and reliable than speculation. The king finally agrees, exclaiming, "These grand and lofty spectacles seen by thousands cannot be denied. Therefore, you are justified in rejecting analogical conclusions and speculation." But, the rabbi is quick to add, heaven forbid that we should assume what is impossible, or that which reason rejects as being impossible. The truth of the Torah is not contrary to reason. It is, however, more powerfully impressed on the mind through experience. In this case, collective, national experience. The corroborated reports of the Exodus and Revelation were subsequently transmitted from parents to children through reliable tradition. This explains why Pesach and the daily reminders of the Exodus are so essential to Judaism. The rabbi and the king continue to discuss the faith system and halachic system of the Torah. As for proving God's existence, while Sadia had argued that the existence of the universe points to the existence of a creator, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi bases his demonstration of God's existence on the collective experience of the Exodus and Revelation. Everyone from that generation could attest to those events and then transmitted them faithfully to the next generation, telling them that they too must experience the Exodus as though they had been there. This process would continue in every generation until today. Even when speculation leads philosophers such as Aristotle to make accurate statements about God, there is still a great deal lacking. The Rabbi, who is obviously the spokesman for Yehuda Halevi himself, points to the world of difference between what he calls the God of Aristotle and the God of Abraham. The God of Aristotle is known to be one, eternal, incorporeal, and so on, but the philosopher seeks him only to be able to describe him accurately, as one might describe any scientific fact. Such a conception of God can be grasped by speculation, a guide and manager of the world being inferred by reason. The God of Abraham, on the other hand, cannot be grasped by analogic thought, but only by prophetic intuition. It is a conception of God towards which we yearn, tasting and viewing him. Simply put, one can know about the God of Aristotle, but one can have a relationship with the God of Abraham. This is a relationship of love, devotion, and even self-sacrifice. So, the suffering of the Jewish people, far from being proof of their rejection by God, is actually a demonstration of their closeness to him. As God says to Israel in the book of Amos, Rak etchem yadati mikol mishpechot ha'adama, al ken efkod aleichem et kol avonotechem. You only have I known among all the families of the earth. Therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities. It is only in the closest of relationships that this can occur. The king converts and continues to learn more and more about the truth of God, the Torah, and his special relationship with Israel. Shalom.